The Iranians want the United States to take some of these territories. They want them to come in. That's where the war starts. They're not going to keep them out. They want their forces to come on Iranian territory. And then those capabilities that Iran has hidden for decades and has been preparing for decades against the Americans, they'll begin using them. They'll begin striking the American troops. They'll begin to hammer them, counter strikes, whether it's on islands or whether it's on the mainland. They'll just they'll make them miserable. Ultimately, the Americans are going to have to leave. We discussed this at the very beginning of the war, almost at the beginning. I don't know when was our first conversation after the war began. I said that the Americans want this to be a short war, and the Iranians want this to be a long war. Remember, during the 39 days of fighting initially, the Americans, they said unconditional surrender. They thought it'd be over in a couple of days. Many of Iran's friends thought it would be over in a few days. The Iranians were planning this for decades. The Iranians were planning for a long war. So after a few days, when the Americans saw things were going downhill, they kept sending messages. The Iranians ignored them until Trump accepted the Iranian 10-point plan, which was a humiliation for him. And people attacked him, and then ultimately his folks went and said, no, we threw it in the bin. But he accepted it. He tweeted it. So then came the ceasefire. The longer it lasts, Trump is bringing down the global economy. Time is not on his side. So if they carry out an assault, let them take the island. Like, what difference does it make to us? There'll probably be some defenses. Then they'll allow them to take territory over wherever. I don't know the military plans, but the plan is to fight them on the ground, not to prevent them from getting there. The Americans can bomb a few places, take territory, but then they have to keep that territory. In the counterattacks that can last weeks and months, then the Americans will have to stay. Because if they leave, they're humiliated. So they have to stay so the Iranians can keep hitting them and hitting them and hitting them and hitting them. So, I mean, these generals or former generals of the United States, they are fools. But these are political appointees, as you know. To become a general in the United States, you have to you have to be obedient to the military-industrial complex. Why? Because after they retire, they want to get on the board of all these different companies and make their millions. They've lived in a general with their entourage and so on, and then when they retire, they have nothing. So they want to be a part of something big, so that they can keep that lifestyle. They're not like Iranian generals. Iranian generals, they're like us. They're on the front line. It's a different world. It's a different mentality. They're the first to put their lives on the line. So, it's a completely different world. So he can talk this way. Yeah, fine. That's exactly what the Iranians want. Not that the Iranians want war. No one should be mistaken. Because many people think, in the West, they say the Shia Muslims have what they call it, something like martyrdom complex or something silly like that. No, they're prepared for martyrdom. But why? Because for the right cause, if you sacrifice your life, you're a martyr. And what is the right cause? It is supporting the children of Gaza. What is the right cause? Supporting the people of Cuba. What is the right cause? Opposing racism in Southern Africa. That's the causes that that's why they hate Iran. So if it's a cause to defend the country against an aggressor that supports ethno-supremacism and racism and ethnic cleansing and the extermination of children in Lebanon and Gaza, then it's the right cause. So the Iranians want to make this a long war to punish the aggressor and to make sure that it never happens again. Iran wants to make sure when this war is over, the United States government never, ever thinks about attacking our country again. So we want this war to be longer in Iran so that in future we don't have to fight another war. And these people are prepared to give their lives, to make sacrifices, because this is the right cause, to end aggression and to support these people. Again, it goes beyond their comprehension because in their narrative, I said before, and I've said this on many shows, I've been promoting Flint and Hillary Leverett's book, Going to Tehran. If people read that book or read um, Alistair Crook's book, Resistance, even though it's a somewhat old book and things have changed, I think they get a better understanding of this movement, of the resistance, of the axis of resistance, and what this all means. Instead of believing the silly narratives of the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Guardian or the Times or France 24, they should just ignore those. And if they read these and if they read other material, I mean, there's another good book by Peter Oborn on the nuclear program. Uh, I forgot the name, but in any case, if people read, they'd see that actually the Iranians are very, very logical, very, very reasonable, and that ideologically speaking, they're very, it's all coherent, it all makes sense, but they've been taught for all these decades to see Iran as irrational, crazy, dangerous, and of course, who's been promoting the Epstein class and their proxies in the region, the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Qataris and their NATO allies and all that. But people are seeing through that. So in any case, the Iranians are uh, the Iranians want the Americans to take islands. They want the Americans to take territory on the mainland. That's what they want. They want them to carry out these operations so that they can give them the real punishment, because that will be much more painful for them ultimately than Iran's missiles and drones.